Hi, guys. Welcome back to Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Another fantastic day, another fantastic interview. I'm absolutely blessed to have such beautiful guests here on my show. And you guys out there, if you haven't figured it out by now, I mean, this is that 205th interview that we are recording here today. If you haven't figured it out, that it might be actually quite cool stuff, then obviously you need a reminder. So press that subscribe button down there, okay? It's a beautiful button down there. Press it. I should have some subliminal messages. Press the button from now and then coming through. And tell your friends, for Christ's sake, because I've got amazing guests here who are opening up their soul to me and who describe their journey. And we all have got one thing in common. We all have been survivors of trauma. We all have been in dark places. And that's probably the reason that you, the viewer, are coming here onto my show. And we don't want to teach you. That's the wrong word. We want to be open and humble and honest with you and drop the shitty facade, the kind of, I'm all right, I'm strong bullshit you are. No, I've cried my eyes out last night and I'm absolutely there, but I've got the skills now to deal with that wave of emotions and be able to get on with it. And these are the kind of stories that I bring on here. And today is no different. So please, Alyssa Stout is my guest today. Alyssa is a fellow author. She is a woman who had her fair share of traumas. And I loved the way that she was looking at the trauma and to a certain degree at something that you can't just quickly deal with it, but you have to deal with it one trauma at a time. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. So Alyssa, thank you so much for coming onto my show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
No, that's cool. I'm sure you didn't grow up and in high school tell your teacher, hey, look, you know what? I'm going to be an author one day. I'm going to write a book about trauma. What did you want to be when you were at high school? What were your plans?
I always wanted to be a psychologist. An author was definitely not it, but a psychologist is what I wanted to be.
Excellent. And what made that happen?
I always went to therapy when I was younger. It was just kind of like a thing that me and my family did. We had a family therapist that we have gone to. And I was like, I really liked this. This is someone helping not only me, but helping other people. And I've always wanted to be a helper. I didn't know what. I knew I loved children and I knew I loved helping people. So I was like, okay, let's be a child psychologist, like put one on one together.
Fuck me.
So that's how it started.
That must be quite a unique thing, because honestly, every single person I have met in my life, pretty much given the story is that, oh, no, I don't need a psychologist. No, I'm strong. Well, psychologists are for nutters. No, we don't need that. And here you are introduced from a very early stage to the benefits of talking about your problems and maybe getting a different perspective and maybe someone who can help you. And it's, what a breath of fresh air. I want to meet your parents. But the reality is, why were your parents clued in? What was their trauma? Why did they seek guidance?
So I'm the youngest of 5. And my mom is a single mom, and she always has been. So me and my oldest sister have 38 years difference. And so wow. All of my siblings have very different backgrounds. We have 3 different fathers within us. So it started out with my oldest sister. She was in a marriage that ended up going very bad. And my mom was like, you need to go see a therapist. And I was very young at the time. So she ended up going to a therapist and then taking her daughter to a therapist. And that's when I was about 8 or 9. And then my mom was like, no, I think we all need to go to a therapist. So it all just kind of spiraled from there. And it's really upsetting to me to hear about so many families that don't think mental health is a thing. It's all just there's good kids and there's bad kids.
Oh.
No, there's kids that can regulate their emotions, and there's kids that don't know how to. And that's just that's how it is. And I wish there was more families that knew that.
Fuck me. Up there, that is Esme, the Mindful Mouse. That's the prototype of my first children's book. And that is together with Belinda Manna. It will be released next month. And it is exactly about that topic, about bringing emotions to children and making them realize at an early stage that essentially when people are angry with you, they're probably angry about your actions. They're not angry about you as a person. You're a good person, or in this case, a good mouse. But your actions might have been not so great. And to distinguish between those kind of simple principles, that can make a lifetime of difference. And that is something that many parents never were exposed to. And hopefully we can make a difference. And you make a difference. Bloody hell, I didn't see that coming, that we are both from the same kind of ilk there. Bloody hell. So which is beautiful, beautiful. Now I always keep saying on my show, Christ, I would make it, if I was in power, I would make it mandatory that every teenager is having a mandatory 4 weeks in rehab. Because that was psychology pure, that was, all kind of assessments and then working with you and give you the best head start. Why let you become a broken man when we can create strong children? Oh, isn't it? So there you are having actually a really good grounding and the beautiful thing of therapy and wanting to become a psychologist. But then life intervened. So tell me more about that.
So I had just moved home from my sophomore year of college, in which I was a psychology major. So I did go to college to finish out this dream. And we came home and it was Mother's Day, and my sister passed away in a tragic car accident. It was extremely difficult for me to understand what was going on at the time. I think a lot of people thought that since I was 20 years old, I kind of had the foundation of what this was. I had grandparents that passed away. I had people that had passed away, but this was a whole different whirlwind of emotions that I had no idea what they were. But at her funeral, I received a call that I had been offered a position as a domestic violence intern an hour away back at school. And I immediately was like, absolutely not. I will not be going. I'm not going back to school. I'm done. And my parents were like, no, you're going. Like, you have to go back to school. So I packed up my stuff and I moved an hour back away 1 week after my sister passed away. And I became a domestic violence advocate, where I started working with children and I started working with survivors who were telling me unbelievable tragedies. And it really helped me to push down my own. And it was kind of like, well, I am not receiving the abuse that these women are receiving. So my trauma is not actually real. Like, it's, theirs is more important than mine, the hierarchy of trauma. And it took me a while to realize that that wasn't true. That was just my coping mechanism to shut out my life problems and allow me healing other people to just, consume my life. And that took me down an even worse path. Once I realized that, I became addicted to alcohol as well as cocaine. I developed an eating disorder and I hit rock bottom.
What did the alcohol give you?
The alcohol gave me a chance to forget. a chance to forget, and a chance to create a new life.
In those few moments that you were drunk, what were you dreaming of? How did you drink?
How did I drink? Mm-hmm. Party settings.
Right.
Party settings in which I allowed so much more to consume me. That's when in my party stage, I did the drugs, I did do alcohol, and I, had a lot of men, was a victim. I was a victim of myself. And I fell very, very hard into this rock bottom. And then I was like, I don't know how to get out. It was let
me stay there on that point a bit, because we all take it so for granted. Yeah. And then she acted out and then she gets better. But people don't understand what the acting out actually give us. Why do we drink? What are the needs that fulfills us? And I always think in my case, the alcohol comes with a sound effect. And the sound effect is, and 2-3 glasses of wine and my shoulders relax. There's a warmth radiating through my body. Suddenly I'm no longer a middle-aged, overweight man who is dealing with all kind of shit in his life. Suddenly I'm back 21 again. And I put on music, and in my mind I dance rock and roll, and I do those things that I was really good at, and I'm in my dreams I'm even better, and it's great, and I love it. And then sooner or later the tears come, because I've been bottling up so much. And then finally I said, okay, let's change the music. Literally, I would put different music on, Les Miserables, the musical, and I would bawl my eyes out, because I had never learned to deal with negative emotions. So finally, the alcohol allowed me to actually release the floodgates and sop and snot, the works. And these are releases that are so healthy and unhealthy at the same token. I've never was taught how to deal with my emotions. So therefore, I was an emotional cripple. In those times, and that was why I fell down onto the alcohol. So it's interesting. Here you come from a different background. You had the psychological insights, you had the therapy, you had all those things, yet the alcohol was giving you something. The casual sex was giving you something. What was that? What was that need?
Adrenaline and chaos. I like to think, like I said, the alcohol allowed me to forget. The cocaine allowed me to rage. It allowed me to show off all the anger that I had. And it allowed me to be pissed off in the most fun way. And I could get off all my anger because I was just hyped. And it was my way of bargaining. It was another thing of, if I'm this close to death and I end up dying, at some way I can piss off my sister and I can bring her back. It was such a circle of emotions that kept me into this addiction. And on top of that, the normalcy of it, the normalcy of alcohol and cocaine and partying within college settings. That doesn't get talked about, of why, of the actual root behind it. I allowed my addictions to be normalized by my society, the environment that I was in.
So it was easy for you to get cocaine. It was easy for you to have alcohol. And bloody hell, when I was at university, we had the student bar underneath one of the homes there. And, you could get literally, 200 mils of more or less pure alcohol for $5 or something like that. And hell, 2-3 of them, and you were... So yeah, that's student life, and we accept it for that. We accept it as a means of spreading our wings, becoming our own people, etc. But of course, for some of us who are going through trauma and who are getting derailed of any kind of normal life, this can become very interesting. And of course, you attract the right people. So suddenly you're a beautiful woman, you're vivacious, and needless to say, there will be other people that gravitate towards you who have their own trauma and keep drinking to forget or whatever, or are purely addicted and just get on with it. So we find our own tribe. Was that the same with you?
Yes, it was. And it actually grew further than I thought it would. So once I left college, I actually got a job at a children's hospital. And I got to do my work there with children, but I was still continuing my weekend lifestyle because I lived with a group of college kids that I had graduated with. So my friend group from my traumatic time, I lived with them afterwards as well. And it wasn't until I had to leave that group and break away from them, which was, I'd say about a year ago now, that I was like, oh my gosh, this was a trauma response that they were keeping me in. I could not heal until I got away from that group.
It's so beautiful how you say that. I cannot heal until I've actually stopped doing this temporary band-aid, ripping it off every day, new band-aid on, but you're not dealing with the wound underneath there. And that is so beautifully said. And we don't recognize it when we're in it because it serves a need. We are in pure survival. We're in pure adrenaline, cortisone, one wave after the other, survival. And we hate the pain and we love the pleasure. And initially the pleasure is great because the 2 glasses of wine are beautiful. And then you need a bottle of wine before you get half a beautiful. And then you need a bottle of vodka because, there is no more beautiful because you just keep drinking, isn't it? That was certainly my story. And it is, wow. What was the catalyst that made you stop chasing that lifestyle?
I was sitting in my kitchen one day, and I call it my butterfly moment. I have it tattooed all over my body. I was sitting in my kitchen and I was at my bottom of rock bottom. I'm done living. I cannot do this anymore. I can't get anywhere from rock bottom. I'm done. So I was sitting in my living room and I was in my kitchen and I was bawling my eyes out and my window was open. I swear to you, maybe a crack. And with my hand in my head in my hands, I looked up and there was a bright blue butterfly flying around my kitchen to the point where I had to trap it in a candle and let it out. But I knew that was my sister's way of coming through and being like, Alyssa, I am here with you. I'm going to make sure that we get through this together. So, which is why I have the butterfly on my book, but it's my butterfly moment. My sister came through to me and she said, we're going to get through this together. And I vowed from that day forward, I was going to live my life through her and we were going to do life together. That was my butterfly.
Okay, that's goosebumps. Right? But equally, you had, you were so, bloody hell, the goosebumps keep going over the whole of my body. You were ready to hear that message at that moment in time. And it is so beautiful. Sometimes those catalysts, the right things could be the phone call of a friend, or it could be a DUI. It could be, there are many, many different disguises in which guardian angels send us the message. And in your case, it was literally a little butterfly. And I love butterflies, so please, I could see that. So I had a smile on my face when I saw initially the cover of your book. And then, but I thought, that's a bit of a dark butterfly. And so it looks a bit darkish. But then again, now that you know that the story behind it, it's so beautiful. It means so much. Well, so the message was there. So you knew that moment, enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
What were the next steps? Because you can't just have a really good party life, do cocaine for breakfast, and chase it down with vodka and a man later or two, vodka, that is, and just say, okay, that's it now. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. I took myself to therapy.
Therapy or rehab?
Rehab. I took myself to rehab for 3 days. And then after rehab, I started going to therapy.
Good. Thank you. And I'll talk about that a lot in there. So that's my steps to sobriety. What I'm pointing there is the old version, i.e. the first edition, that is no longer on the market. My second edition will be released next month. And in there, I talk about the actually coming off drugs, coming off alcohol specifically, where there's quite a need that you work together with someone who understands what is going in. That could be an addiction counselor, or even better, your family physician, or indeed a dedicated hospital, either inpatient or outpatient, because there will be traumatic changes that are occurring in your body. Your body is used to medications, is used to alcohol, is used to drugs. And if you suddenly stop that, your body says, you got to be joking. And that's called a withdrawal. And that can be, it's rarely life-threatening, but it can be, especially if you've got other diseases or problems. So therefore, please, guys, when you hear stories of transformation and people getting clean, don't just say, okay, I'll try that at home without any support and out anything. Yes, you will need to get clean, because the addiction is its own trauma in its own right. And I love the way Alyssa has labeled it, my trauma made me do it, kind of a thing. But the problem is what we then do, i.e. the addiction and the deeds and the actions that we take as addicts. Well, that is its own trauma. So please, you need help. And there's so many beautiful people out there who are willing to help you. And your family physician, your GP, will be the very first port of call. Please don't forget that. So help is out there. It's already now waiting for you. Big message, big there. So cool. 3 days of rehab in the sense of getting you off the drugs in a safe way, and letting you ride this storm of neurochemicals that is withdrawal. Can you remember much of those 3 days?
I don't. I can be honest and say I don't remember a lot of specifics about the year after my sister passed away. And that is something that has kind of torn me up, because I know the generals of everything that happened, but I cannot get the memories back of a lot of days.
And that's the same with me. And that's maybe quite a good thing. Because maybe there's a protective mechanism a bit there, because the actions that we have taken, the situations that we have found ourselves in, the situations that we created, were for sure not nice. I mean, how many times do you wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, who is he? Or who is she in my case? Something like that. Yes, there have been times in my youth where I'm so pleased. When I say youth, 20s, 30s, where I say, oh God. But that was then. Right. That was then. And it's, you accepted it already. And I hear that in your voice, that it is disturbing for you to realize that there are so many blackouts or lacks of memory. But essentially that is something that comes in when you make amends, and you make amends to yourself as well. And you actually say, okay, shit, that was then. And now is now. Exactly. So 3 days of rehab, got your shit sort of together biologically and metabolically, etc. What happened thereafter?
So when I took myself to rehab, I was still in college. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks before we had to move back home for the summer. So I ended up moving back home for the summer, which was really good for me because I couldn't get the stuff that I needed to, like I could back at school. Not like I needed to if I wanted to. Like if I were going to relapse, I could do it very easily at school, or back at home, I wasn't able to. So I did move back home until my senior year, in which I moved back to college. And I moved in with the girls that I had still lived with my junior year, that my addiction started with. So it was a very rocky road for me there. My addiction was not back, but it was, because there were times where I would be like, well, it's just one time. It's not that big of a deal. And it would just be one time, but it was still like, it wasn't, it still was not a healthy environment for me. So I almost failed my junior year of college. And I have always been the 4.0 student, the A+ student. So I almost failed my junior year. And when I came back my senior year with my friends, the first day of class, I saw my blue butterfly again. And I was like, all right, we're going to have a good year. And 2 weeks later, my professor came up to me and told me that I was eligible to graduate early. I had no idea how it happened, but I did. And I graduated a semester early, and I went back home, and I took that time to get my life back together.
Beautiful. Several things I want to pick up on there. First of all, the fact that you said, just one time, just one day. That's called a lapse. One time is called a lapse, and a few days of it is called a relapse. And that's normal, guys. And if you're addicted, welcome to our world. 80% chance that you relapse in your first year, okay? So because you're talking about very powerful mechanisms that served you really well in some kind of weird, skewed way, your body aligned survival with alcohol. And it's a weird, shitty thing that happens, but the alcohol becomes as important as food, as oxygen, as water. And it's weird. You don't get the alcohol life. Oh, wow. Your body goes in, hey, we can't have that. So that is what happens. And if you then suddenly stop that, interesting things will happen. So, but here you are, you went for rehab, you got off the drugs, you then went actually, interestingly enough, back into a situation where you potentially were vulnerable. I'm going to say potentially, several possibilities here. If your fellow students have by now actually burned out themselves and actually said, no, we are no longer into drinking, well, that's cool. Chances are slim that is happening, isn't it? So they were still partying, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
And that's of course hard. That's hard. It's availability. I really don't want cheesecake, but here have some cheesecake. Have a smell at the cheesecake. Yeah, it's really nice, isn't it? We are baking all day long. You're right, great. As if you had no cheesecake. So bottom line is, you might have to take some drastic steps. And in recovery of addiction, we certainly say, try not to expose yourself to these kind of risks because it becomes far too easy. And so I'm really pleased that you only had a few lapses there, not gone crazy. It would have been too easy, but the butterfly obviously left quite an impression in your soul.
It really did. And it was really hard for me throughout school because my friends didn't see my life as an addiction, because they did drink so much and because they did what, they did not see theirs as an addiction. Mine was not an addiction. And that's where a lot of my relapses came from, because it was like, I had so hard to defend myself on, no, I can't do this. I was addicted. This is a relapse. Like, I can't do it. And they were just like, what are you like, Alyssa, it's fine. It's just one time. And it was really hard. And it wasn't until I moved away from them that I realized they were enabling my addiction, and in such a safe environment where I felt these would have been my best friends for 5+ years, that they were encouraging something that was hurting me so bad. I couldn't make that connection.
Your parting included promiscuity. You exactly, and it's lovely to have this kind of powerful get to know someone, go crazy, and go all the way. There is something very addictive to that, and it's not for nothing that there is sex addiction out there in its own right.
Yeah.
At the same token, I've had many guests on my show who described quite a lot of sexual violence and a rape culture in American colleges and in American society, with levels that sometimes blew my mind when you look at those kind of things. How does that marry up in your life? Here you were there incidences that people took advantage of you?
Yes, a lot. So being the domestic violence advocate and the sexual assault advocate was hard enough, because I heard survivor stories, and I knew what sexual assault was, and I knew the actuality of it, that it's not just a stranger that jumps out of a bush. It's usually your friends and people when you're vulnerable. And I knew the signs. I knew all of that was there. However, I was sexually assaulted by my best friend, a few of my best friends, by my boyfriend at the time, who, I had women come and talk to me that he had sexually assaulted them, like, in my role. So that was very, very hard as well. But yeah, I think that sexual assault comes with vulnerability. And when you are not in the emotional state to say yes, to say, I'm fully here right now, I fully want this. And, with alcohol, with drugs, with trauma, sadness and depression, you don't always have that.
Exactly.
Have that narrow mind to say, yes, I'm fully okay with this. And then after the fact, you're like, no, he was just showing me attention and what I wanted at the time.
And it's beautiful that you say it like that. So yes, I actually needed that attention, and I'm happy to trade sex for that attention, kind of a thing. So there is sometimes so many things going on that I wonder where the line is between him and you fulfilling their own needs and you making a pact for one night, so to speak, typically alcohol infused and drug infused, but it's fulfilling needs, sort of. And where does that then move into sexual violence? And that's really, really hard for me sometimes to grasp. So, and I think, and there is no easy answer. I'm not by any way saying I've got a solution here, but I want to raise the awareness that we all have done things where we say the next morning, oh my God. Lucky, yeah. So I think, and that is its own trauma. So again, you need to be able to talk to that. With these kind of things, you were together with other people who did exactly the same lifestyle, who were as promiscuous as human and as crazy, and that was cool. Were they suffering from it? Was there a trauma aspect in those people that were around you?
I believe so. In my own personal belief, I believe everyone has some sort of trauma that is causing, coping mechanisms that they're not sure that's what they are. So I believe that there were. And knowing their lifestyles and how they grew up, I can see little traumas where I can know, okay, this is what you're trying to accomplish with it. Mm-hmm. However, they have never explicitly told me or themselves. I believe that.
I mean, the acting out in its own right is a coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. And the problem, of course, is we as addicts, we have got a super dopamine response. So if you were to measure that in our brain levels, someone is having a glass of wine and they say, yeah, that's nice. And there are these weird people who have a glass, don't finish it and leave it on the table and get off the table. Who the fuck are you? What happened? And can I have the rest of your glass? Exactly. So then we are not like that, okay? Because we get that glass and our dopamine goes, wow! It's a missile up there. And therefore, so yeah, that's it. And that, of course, the same happens. This dopamine happens with certain behaviors: the gambling, the sex, the overeating, the adrenaline nutters out there in the nicest way. You know, there are. Yeah. This is all either fulfilling needs to suppress something, or to deal with something, or etc., or to get high because we are addicted to that dopamine rush, to that wow, that's gorgeous. And unfortunately, many of the things that we use are, however, incredibly self-destructive. And it sometimes looks more like suicide on an installment plan than actually a life.
Of life, yeah.
Man. And what I love with you, Alyssa, is that you have got all that insight from therapy yourself as a young girl, then studying psychology, yet falling into this exactly same traps. I love that because I'm a doctor. I should know. I should fucking well know what is addiction, what is depression, what is PTSD, all those kind of things that I score. Yeah, tick, 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 tick. That's right. I could see it in everyone else a mile away. In myself, no, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine.
I am perfect. I don't know what anybody's talking about. This is not a trauma response.
Exactly. Isn't it amazing? The kind of bullshit we tell ourselves. Alyssa, you make me smile because it's exactly that. And that's the reason. If I look around in rehab, there were people from every strata of society. There were judges, there were truck drivers, there were women, there were boys, there were people who didn't really know what they were. Everything is there. And
I felt it was very inspiring to know that there were so many different walks of life like me. Because, there's such a hard stigma around addiction that makes you think that you're the bottom of the barrel. And that's not what it is. So it was like, it made me feel, it made me feel normal to be at a recovery center and to be getting help for what I needed to be getting help for.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. You had already several traumas accumulated there. How did your journey actually start? What was the first onion layer that you can remember they sort of peeled back?
When I was in middle school, I was about 235 pounds. So I was bullied a lot. So that's where it originally all started.
Interesting. You didn't touch upon that, did you?
That's something I don't talk about very much.
I like a lot. I went from a very pudgy boy, bullied, to an lean, mean fighting machine, kick-ass guy, due to flow-on effects of PTSD and trauma, to then alcohol, to then Pachi again. Yay! Full circle.
It's the full circle.
Yeah, exactly. But and I guess these are all things that you might focus on one thing. I'll give you an example. When you have got trauma, as in real trauma, as in you have walked in front of a bus, then you come to the emergency department and there is a bone sticking out of you and your eye hangs out there. Okay, everyone says, oh my God, there's a bone and there's the eye sticking out. So we are focusing on those kind of things that are very apparent and very right now important. Mm-hmm. If you then just stop there, and that's a pitfall, then you miss about 10% of the injuries. And that's where we do a primary survey, where we're checking you head to toe and look, is there anything that can kill you right now? Then we do a secondary survey where we go carefully over you, head to front, top to bottom, everything, finger in every orifice. Don't try that at home, kids. And then the next day, we do a tertiary survey. And in the tertiary survey, you find 10% of things that you have missed the first time around. That is normal in complex trauma. Guess what? That is also normal. And we look into ourselves when we look into the trauma. So you might right now have to deal with the addiction to start off with. You need to get clear because otherwise your head will never understand what else is going on. And then suddenly here, the next step was childhood trauma, the bullying, and your perception of yourself, the lack of self-love, the lack of the insecurity to all that. So you had that coming as the next step. Now that would have been not just one session, was it?
No, it was not.
Exactly. That's interesting that came out early because it's beautiful. Often enough, we deal with traumas and deal with stuff in adulthood and we forget what actually happened to you as a teenager. You sort of belittle that or think, no, that's just normal growing up. In you, it was the other way around, which is again unusual, but beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, it was. That's why I say one trauma at a time. It is something that still comes up a lot for me, like they all do. Right now, I am very focused on healing from, this trauma this healing journey that I'm on from my sister, especially my birthday's tomorrow and I turned 24 and she was 24. So this has been a little hard week for me, but that is definitely something that my bullying comes up a lot for me. Cause it's like, it's where my imposter syndrome comes in and I'm like, I don't actually have any right to be doing any of this. Like, who am I? Like my book, what do I have to be writing a book? Like, who the hell am I?
Oh, it's so true. True.
So it's like and then I get insecure in my relationships, but I'm at a point now where I'm able to recognize what our trauma response is. I know when I need to heal them, I'm like, okay, this is something I'm going to put a bookmark in and I'm going to figure out in a little bit, but I at least know what it is, where the root comes from.
Sure. And see, there is, if I look at my sexual promiscuity and my wilder life, I have to say that I come from bullying and from never be good enough and all that kind of bullshit. And then suddenly you prove yourself, you conquer and you, etc. And it's beautiful. These wow. And the initial night, if it's a one-night stand, or the initial 2-3 months, if it is a relationship, it's beautiful. Then it becomes mundane, and then I was running for the hills. So I was addicted to that conquering, to that proving myself, so to speak. And imposter syndrome, hell, I invented that. Okay, so I know exactly how you feel. Even nowadays, I'm thinking to myself, who am I? Yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm not an addiction specialist. Therefore, I shouldn't be talking about that. Yes, I am a survivor, but so what? And it's that kind of bullshit. It is bullshit. Bullshit.
Complete bullshit.
So, okay, let's be honest here. So therefore, you are a survivor and you are a psychologist. You are one of these rare breeds like me. We have sat on both sides of the fence, and therefore we are actually quite unique. You are speaking out, and that makes you unique, because there are enough psychologists who have been doing absolute stupid things, but they keep their mouth shut because they say, no. If my patient was to find out, oh my God. And it's the same here with me as a doctor. Other doctors come to me and say, wow, are you not worried that your patients find out? And I say, well, actually, it's not so infrequent that I mention it to a patient, that I say, hey, look, actually, man, I have got a YouTube show and see what you're going through, and maybe do you want to have a look at this and this interview that might actually reverb with you and might be of help. So do you, your journey, you're coming out with your book, what did your peers make out of that? Were there any repercussions, positive or negative?
I have gotten a lot of positive feedback from it. A lot of people that I went to high school with, a lot of people that knew my sister, they have all bought it. And, I've gotten a lot of good feedback from them. I think my most negative feedback right now would probably be from my family, who is just kind of like
funny that is. Funny
right?
that is, yeah.
That's kind of like, you wrote a book, like, okay, what about it? But for the most part, I'm getting a lot of people who are inspired by it. And that's what I was kind of hoping for.
And that's exactly it. That's it for those. And what I'm going here for here is the shame and guilt. That is so these evil twins, I described them in my book, Steps to Sobriety, the evil twins. They write you. And they lie to you. They tell you that, oh my God, if you come out into the open, if you tell people that you're an alcoholic, my God, the world will stop. Guess what? Everyone else knows out there that you're a freaking alcoholic. Everyone else knows about your escapades. Nowadays, worse than ever. I mean, in the past, at least, we partied hard, but we partied at a time when there were no cell phones with recording devices. So that's right. There were no cell phones, actually, for that matter. And it was beautiful. I mean, I was renowned for the parties that I threw. And these were, I won't call them sophisticated. I will call them beautiful parties where alcohol was flowing freely and where there was an understanding that we're all having a good time. And that would typically be on a Saturday night. And then on a Sunday, we would meet for lunch. Everyone was at a party or so, or everyone, who wanted to come. And you would sort of try to, oh, you are coming with whom? In that car. And you're coming with whom? So there was this promiscuity, but it was a kind of good. Okay, we are playing. We are young adults and we are living our life to the max. So that was the kind of life we lived. And that was a beautiful life, but still it was a life that was lived because we were all fulfilling our needs. We all had our trauma. We all had our kind of things that were, oh God. So
the life.
But but that was then. And nowadays we are there and we are actually telling the story for what it is. We are open. We are no longer hiding those things. And for that, Alyssa, I congratulate you, because you are going out there and actually saying, guys, it's normal that you have gone through trauma. It's normal that you're acting out. It's normal that you fuck up, basically. And it's okay that you have done that. It's not okay that you keep doing it. Because, I mean, how many bottles of vodka, how many men does it take for you to realize that maybe, Band-Aid. That's right, exactly. So don't beat yourself up, though, for what you have done, but learn from it. Accept it as being a part of you. And that's what you have done. That's what you have succeeded. And that's a harder battle than anything you have fought in your life, because you have won that battle. You have actually come to terms with your own soul, with your own you, warts and all, scars and all. That's you. And that's the reason you can look in the camera and smile today. And you have gone through some very traumatic experiences right now with me. And instead of reaching for a bottle or for something now to drown your sorrows, you're laughing with me and we're joking about the bullshit that we have done. That's recovery. That's beautiful. That is powerful. That's what I don't want to miss. If you had the chance to go back, if you had a time machine or a magic wand, would you change anything in your past?
I wouldn't change a single thing.
And that's virtually an answer that I get from everyone I interview. I would neither, because whilst I was a stupid idiot as a younger man, I am now such a different man because of that. And I love the guy that I'm now. I hate the guy that I was then, but I would have never been the guy now had I not been the other guy.
Absolutely. Me too. I wish I could go back and give her a hug.
Yes.
But a big hug, but I love who I am because of her.
So the question then is, who do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to build a mental health empire. I want to give TED Talks. I want to create a space for people to be able to share their stories. I want to give people tools that can help everybody to heal the way that they need to heal. Like, I just want to break every stigma around mental health that there is. Like, I need this mental health empire. There's so many empires in this corporate world. We need a mental health one.
Alyssa, you're so right. You're so right. You speak out of the deepest inner fiber of my soul. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. And I guess that's the cool thing, what we are doing here. We are connecting. And an empire is people working together to create that. So Alexander the Great wasn't just hopping on an elephant and said, okay, let's see how it goes. I just go for a ride. No. He had a bloody big team around him. So what was to happen if we actually start putting the imposter syndrome, the shame, the guilt, all that crap aside and actually say, who do we really want to be? I ask you guys out there, you're watching right now, you're all the way through to that part in our discussion here. So who do you want to be? And imagine that, dream of that person. And then imagine that life of that person. And really in every vivid detail, imagine that. And I did that recently. I did that in an exercise with a life coach. She's just started out and I went along and I thought, yeah, okay, support her, thinking that I might be the only one in the audience. And as it turned out, there was a dozen or 2 dozen of us there. And she made us do this exercise. She actually said, I want you to pair up. And now for 3 minutes, I want you to describe the absolute perfect you. And I did that and we talked and then my partner did it and she talked and that was cool. And so we went on. Half an hour later, she said, now, guys, I want you to now do the same partner exercise, but this time I want you to speak as if you are 3 years ahead, and I want you to describe your life. And I thought, that's weird. Goosebumps. And I turned around to her and started talking, and suddenly I was this person. I was this. I lived that world, and these words came out of my mouth, and I heard the words, and what's happening here? I was that person 3 years down the line, and it was such a powerful, powerful thing. So therefore, if I may please recommend you, ask you, force you, twist your arm, go try that. Imagine who you could be, and then stop the bullshit and actually take little steps towards that. Do you think Alyssa can make an empire? Fuck yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no doubt about that, because you will be able to achieve tremendous things. There's no 2 ways around that. Will it be an easy road? Hell no. Because some people will try to hijack you. We call it tall poppy syndrome here. You lift your head above the parapet, people want to cut you down. They find things negative about you, etc. Will there be naysayers? Will there be people who do not believe you? Will there be people who say, well, what are your accreditations? Who are you to do that? Yeah, people will try. These are unfortunately the voices that we sometimes listen to, and we really shouldn't, because they're probably the 1% who are a bit the jerks and the assholes anyhow. Whilst if you were to listen to the 99% who are actually saying, wow, you did that? Wow, I could have never done that. And then if you actually say, well, actually, yes, you can. And if actually out of those 100 who said, I would have never done that, maybe 10 of them make that. And then actually they have their little part of the empire. Can you imagine what we do to this world if we just keep going? Actually making it okay to not to be okay.
And it would change everything.
Would it not? Would it not? So, and we can, Alyssa. So I'm really, really pleased that the universe brought us together, because God knows where we stop. But that's what it is. It's the opposite to addiction is connection. So if you can work with others, find a tribe that supports you and that empowers you to do the impossible, then there is nothing impossible.
No,
okay. 40 years ago, it was impossible to run the mile in less than 4 minutes. And then someone did it. Okay. It's beautiful. Up to 2000 and what was it? I don't know the exact date, but people said there is no way that you can record dreams, that you can't do that neuroscientifically. That's absolutely impossible. Actually, boom, I think 2014, the first studies came out where you can actually work in dreams and record them. And you think, what the heck? So there is so much we don't understand, but with the right willingness and the crazy notion that nothing is impossible, you will find there's so much possible. So Alyssa, amazing. So I'm so pleased that you came onto my show today, literally. Alyssa, tell me more. Where can people find you? Where can people bounce ahead, ideas around with you?
Yeah, so I actually have a website it's called www.unspokenjourneys.com. I'm also on Instagram at Unspoken Journeys, as well as TikTok on Unspoken Journeys. But yeah, I am mostly on my website. And I can be reached on there through my email.
And show us your book again, please.
Yeah.
There you go. The Unspoken Journey. And it's beautiful. The blue butterfly there. Now you guys know why there's a blue butterfly on that. And that's through Amazon and where can people get that?
It's on Amazon for printable and ebook.
Perfect. Exactly. Oh, brilliant. Alyssa, there is no doubt that I might as well book another interview with you in about a year's time, because there's no doubt actually we too will have developed and grown and transformed to further things. And having said that, whilst we're laughing about it now, it might equally be that you might be in a really deep, dark hole then. And that would be okay too. Because our journey is not full of blessings and full of yay. That is most of the time, but virtually all of my guests I have had the pleasure of staying in touch with, and you suddenly realize that someone is getting very quiet, and you sort of think, "What's going on? Oh, look, some shit has happened, and I'm really deep dark out." So, unfortunately, only because you've just conquered one trauma does not mean that not the next one is waiting around the corner. But with every corner, with every trauma, you learn new coping skills. And you have figured out those things that maybe didn't suit you so well in the past. You've ditched to the wayside. And now you're a stronger person. Mm-hmm. And whilst more trauma will come, no doubt, meanwhile, you might have built a tribe that supports you. Maybe you have built connections. Maybe you have got a coach. Maybe you have got, the trust in yourself that you say, okay, this will not be easy now, but I will get through it. Mm-hmm. And that's a very different stance than you had, a very different attitude than you had maybe prior to your first trauma.
Right, absolutely.
Alyssa, thank you so much. I mean, this was a beautiful, beautiful interview. I'm really, really pleased that we got together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a beautiful experience.
And you guys out there, come on, guys, join us, come onto our journey. And there is literally, what have you got to lose? There is a new you waiting to be developed. And you know, we are just a little bit further down the road in our journey compared with you. We have been in your shoes. So, you know, don't give up. Just listen to the interviews here, follow Alyssa, read her book, and draw from it. Draw the energy that you deserve, that you need to develop the new you that you can be proud of, and where you look in the mirror and says, love you. So stay strong. I believe in you guys. Bye.